Days of Ruin, not so much. I like Dual Strike. All right, I think it's time. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to the Tiny Metal Full Metal Rumble panel. Shall we put the screen on? My name is Hiroaki Yura. I'm the producer and the director of the game. I really love Advance Wars. Okay, my Twitter is at Hiroaki Yura. You can follow me there. And I will be tweeting mostly about Tiny Metal or Warhammer. For those people who haven't seen it, I just want to start with a trailer so that you guys can familiarize yourself with what we've made. This is a sequel to the first Tiny Metal, and I hope you get a good feel of what the game is about by looking at this 90-second trailer.
The Unending War. A powerful, unbridled AI network. The shadows of a machine army. Bloody conflicts over the cursed lost tech artifacts. And now, a new battleground awaits. Adventure freely as the fires of war expand to new areas. New missions, difficulties, and numerous challenges await. Unlock new units and lead the White Fangs to victory. Revive the ancient bloodline. Protect your loved ones. Lead the future of the human race. All units, battle stations. Tiny Metal, Full Metal Rumble. Awaken the warrior in you.
All right. So what is Tiny Metal? Tiny Metal is a turn-based strategy game, and basically it's a tactical war simulation appealing to all ages, which is easy to understand, but with a bit of difficulty to master. So why did we start this project? We had a guy called Daniel Dressler. He's a Canadian programmer who lives in Japan. And we were actually trying to get a programmer for another project called Project Phoenix. However, our whole team wasn't ready to tackle the game because it was quite a huge JRPG and an undertaking. And we decided to do a smaller project which became Tiny Metal, with a already existing system that he already had. And lo and behold, he was a big fan of Advance Wars, and so was I. That's why we came to make this indie game. So, spiritual successor to Advance Wars. So what does that mean? It means we love Advance Wars, and we want to make possibly a 2019 version of Advance Wars, but we didn't specifically want to make a clone, because clones are boring. And also, as video game designers and developers, we wanted to make something original for ourselves as well, in the same vein of Advance Wars. So basically, we put in our signature game mechanics and original stories and characters ourselves. So what's different? The biggest difference between Advance Wars and Tiny Metal is basically the facings. Is anybody familiar with Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics? Yeah, maybe? It's where you can decide which way your unit faces. In Advanced Wars, you don't have that. It's in terms of icon, it's always I think your team is always facing the right, and the enemy team is always facing the left. It's easy to see, to distinguish between yours and your enemy units, etc. But in our game, there's actual facing that actually matters. So what does that mean? Basically, if you attack a unit front on, you're going to do less damage than if you attack a unit from behind, just like you see on the GIF that we prepared just then. This is what we call flanking. So you do more. You have a better chance of doing critical damage if you attack from the rear, or slightly if you attack from the sides. Another two major attack variations we have is called focus fire and assault. Focus fire is when two units gang up on one unit, and assault is where you can actually push an enemy unit out of a tile. Focus fire means that you could actually have more than two, so you could actually have almost 8 units attacking at once if you include the sniper. But if you're surrounded, normally because snipers can do indirect attack, which is about 2 or 3 tiles away. Normally, a normal unit can only do an attack which is 1 tile away. You could only do 4 at a time. So what happens is everybody attacks, and if that enemy target unit survives the attack, then you can only counterattack one of the units that initiated the focus fire. This is interesting because it helps really alleviate the fact that in Advanced Wars you can get clogged up with units like infantry and artillery, and basically slow down the game. We wanted a fast action-paced game where you could easily take down a really strong unit by focus firing on one unit at a time. This way you can destroy a unit, you can move on, and basically crumble an enemy flank in no time. Another thing is assault is very useful against infantry that is trying to cap a city. The only downside to assault is they get to fire first. So you need to survive that initial fire in order to actually push the enemy out. But when you do push the enemy out, obviously it's going to cancel the capture process of the infantry. So that's really good against infantry that's just about to cap a city or a facility that you probably don't want them to. Last but not least point for our difference is you could probably see on the right hand side of the screen, promoted to rank, blah blah blah, defense boost by 30% or whatever. This is what we call veterancy. We're all, at Area 35, we're also a big fan of Red Alert. And Red Alert had this awesome system of veterancy where you keep your units healthy and surviving. It will accrue experience and make the unit better. Obviously, this is a war game. We don't want people to die, and we want to champion the survival of veteran units. That's why we made sure we gave the players an incentive to keep units alive. So those are the major differences between Advanced Wars. I'll get to some minor ones later on, but this is it for actual, the vanilla Tiny Metal version. Now I'd like to talk about what's new in Tiny Metal Full Metal Rumble. So in Full Metal Rumble, we have a campaign skirmish multiplayer mode, which is exactly the same as the original version, but we now have unlocks where you can go to the shop and unlock or actually buy new skirmish maps, and you're also able to unlock things like the jukebox, the music from the jukebox, even drama. So does anybody like voice actors from Japan or elsewhere? No, not really, maybe? You guys are supposed to be anime fans, right? In Japan, there's a lot of huge, voice actor, fans in Japan, and people just love listening to people's voices or being, told stories, etc. I'm a huge Warhammer fan, so when I paint my miniatures, I like to listen to Horus Heresy books, audio books, so that my ears got something to do whilst I'm painting miniatures. So we thought it was a good idea to put in some narrative into the audiobooks. We got this idea from things like Metal Gear Solid 5, where you get to listen to a background story, where if you put that into the actual campaign, it's just going to go on for too long. But for people who are interested, they can listen to the background of the world, basically. So we got those, and we have the Metalpedia, which is very self-explanatory. It's kind of like a Wikipedia of the tiny metal world. Another thing is we put some effort into the main menu. I'm sorry, this is really fast. It's flipping along really fast, but each section of the menu has different things to show. It's obviously creating a 3D environment on Unreal. So you can actually take your time and have a look at it. It's quite fantastic. We have it on demo downstairs at booth 10, so it might be cool to check it out. The next thing we've done new is the overworld. Previously, you can only go to map nodes and go to your next mission, etc. But now it's fully explorable. There are points where you can unlock stuff and find stuff. There's maps and there's music and there's money lying around in the world like you do in the real world. You'll be able to explore and do whatever. But the world's quite large, so you might get lost. And we've also put in although what we were showing on the screen is a very old version of the overworld, we've also put in an autopilot feature where you can just autopilot your way to the next waypoint. Now, the next screen you're seeing is the Hangar. This is where you keep your unlocked heroes. These heroes are basically, once you find them during the campaign, you get to keep forever, and you also get to use it during your skirmishes and multiplayer as well. These heroes are much better than the normal units that you have or you can produce in your factories. Once you accrue a hero, you're able to keep its veterancy status. So as long as the unit doesn't die during that mission, if your captain goes into a major, you keep this status as a major as long as it doesn't die. These heroes are pretty cool, and it's pretty essential to the campaign as they are really, really good. And these heroes can be called down from a thing called a comms tower or a comlink, basically, and they'll just come down from space, which is kind of weird. Also in this hangar, you'll see unlocked version of the general units. Now, we've decided to include general units where in some of the missions, your own general could actually fight. And this one doesn't accrue veterancy status between missions, but it does get veterancy as you progress through the mission itself. Ammo and fuel. Now, we didn't have ammo and fuel for Tiny Metal, probably because I didn't feel like it contributed to the game a lot. To me, it was a lot of hassle going back and forth cities or getting supplied by APCs or whatnot. But we had a lot of player feedback that who basically told us that they wanted ammo and fuel, and that it brought in more dimension to strategy. So we actually brought it back. This wasn't a decision that I took lightly, but we've just had way too much feedback on Steam and people who are on Steam but was playing on the Switch as well. So, sorry, I'm just gonna skip one. So this is a screenshot of a scene. As you can see on the bottom left, you can see fuel and ammo reserves. This heavy metal driven by Nathan, this is actually a general unit, has 10 ammo and 99 fuel. Dependent on the biomes that I'm going to talk about next, your fuel consumption will differ, and the ammos will be used during counterattacks as well. So if you get attacked quite a lot, you can actually use quite a lot of ammo during one turn. So going back to the new biomes, the original Tiny Meadow only had grasslands, so it was all green. And we thought we might give more variety to the next game by having sand and snow biomes. Now, of course, having different, kind of biomes would make it pretty and nice to look at. But obviously, we added features that are that would give challenges to the player as well. So the snow biome is basically you consume more fuel for your vehicles, your land vehicles, because you're on snow. And on sand biomes, your infantry travels 1 tile less. So usually your infantry travels 3 tiles, it only travels 2. So this would give variety to the tactical situation you're in. If you're, working on having a lot of infantry, you probably want to put them in APCs to travel faster in the sand biome. All right. Sorry. The next thing I would like to talk about is the results screen. We've added quite a lot of features to the results. Another thing is, although this isn't shown here, we've added difficulties to the game as well. So we actually have easy, normal, hard, and master. We didn't have any of that in the first game. We only had normal and New Game Plus. So and also we've also improved a lot of the UI, AI, and the actual enemy unit can focus fire you, can assault you on certain situations, and it is quite difficult to play on master. Another thing is we've added challenges and a lot of different main objectives. A lot of the missions from the first game was basically take out their headquarters or defeat all enemy units. But in the next, in our upcoming game, we actually have a lot more survive X number of turns, or please make sure that this VIP unit doesn't get destroyed, etc. Another thing is we have challenges. These are things basically like mini achievements during the game, secondary objectives, so to speak, like, don't use hero units or capture X amount of buildings, destroy X amount of units, etc. Another thing we worked on is the pixel art UI. These cute pixel art UI will pop up on the top, bottom left-hand corner of the screen to tell you what kind of unit you're selecting. The reason why we use pixel art is it's really cool. Not really. Yes, it is cool, but we wanted people to see the UI clearly because your screen is made out of pixels, and basically to give a very clear indication of what kind of unit you're selecting. It's very hard when you're selecting through 3D models and you're looking through lots of perspective. One thing I didn't mention is that in this version of Tiny Meadow, you can actually rotate the camera around and zoom quite more than the original game. So sometimes your unit might get hidden by biomes, and we try not to do that, but it just makes it much clearer to have a unit on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. These pixel art is done by Nishimura-san, who worked on Octopath Traveler. Now, again, this is this Archelon concept, which is basically the APC, we made this due to popular demand, and also we were planning to do this anyway as a troop carrier. It's very good to have troop carriers in Advanced Wars, and I'm sure we feel that this addition to Tiny Meadow has helped the game quite a bit. But we wanted to make several differences to the troop carrier on basically how you can assault a unit out of a troop carrier and basically attacker unit. So things like Lancers, which is basically like dudes with rocket launchers, these guys could actually go out of a APC and attack a unit right away. That means you can actually attack something almost 6 or 7 tiles away, which is fantastic, instead of just 2 tiles away. It's also armed with a minigun, so it's totally not defenseless, which is slightly it's slightly weaker than the actual Scout that we have, which is something very similar to the Humvee. Another reason we had to add the APC is because of ammo and fuel we added to the game, so it can supply other units. This unit can actually supply air units as well, and we imagine reusing this balloon-like supply system, like you see, well, basically your CIA actually makes. And because basically, if you can't supply your air units with the APC, it's very hard to supply them at all, because air units can only be otherwise supplied at other air bases. So here's an Archelon in action. It can move up to 5 tiles. It's very fast, and it's very good at the troop transport and also supplying other units. So he's a unit that we really want to push, which makes it very different from any kind of advanced wars. Oops, sorry. It's called the Mechanima, and basically it's a powered suit. Sexy. Mechanima, short, sorry. So the Mechanima, we call it the Mecha for short. Our concept designer wants to call it the Mecha. In Japanese, the Mecha is almost like a mecha, which means totally chaotic and crazy. It also sounds a bit cute. The Mecha, I like to call it, it's a powered suit, and it's something that we've never seen in this kind of tactical warfare, unless you play something like Mech Warrior. And the difference in this in these type of units is that it can travel on hills, where previously only infantry could travel on hills. These mecha can basically climb hills very fast without any kind of movement penalty. This gives a lot of versatility in tactical warfare against other units. And as you can see on the left-hand side, there's quite a lot of mechas in this game. There are basically 3 main mechas. The first one on the top is the Blitz mecha, and as the name suggests, it can travel very fast. It has a handgun, which is anti-infantry, and it's very tough. The second one is the Gallant mecha. It has a rifle and a shield, and it's anti-vehicle. The third one is the Buster mecha, which basically is a rocket launching indirect unit. And the last one is the Mega mecha, and as with all Mega series, it's basically good at doing everything. Basically, what is the downside to a mecha? So it's basically a little, we like to think of it as like a medium tank from Advanced Wars. It's slightly stronger than the metal. It does less movement, and it requires a lot of fuel to operate. It also doesn't have a lot of ammo, so you probably need to get it supplied frequently. And the APC cannot move onto hill tiles, so you need to actually go down from the hill to actually get supplied, or actually adjacent to a non-hilly area, or get a supply plane, which I haven't shown you in this presentation. It has its downsides, but it's actually quite versatile, and it's very fun to use. When I talk about the generals next, there is a certain general that is very good at using the mecha. The next unit is a Mega Fighter. And I don't really want to talk about the Mega Fighter too much because it's for you guys to find out in the game. It's piloted by Ragnar, who is Wolfram's brother. So let's go to characters. So Wolfram, the girl you see here, is going to be the main character of the game. It's a move from Nathan, who used to be the main character of the previous game. Now, has anybody played the first Tiny Metal? Nobody yet? Oh, you have. Cool. So basically, Wolfram is she's basically a mercenary, and we created this game when we had this huge problem in Syria where people were, being displaced from their home, and all these sad news were going about. And I thought of basically people, a bunch of people who got displaced from their country and who live on boats, basically. But as in boats, as in like really big boats. It's basically a fleet. And Wolfram is part of a mercenary group that gets paid by other countries to fight their wars, but gets paid, and she basically feeds all the family members who are in the fleet, basically. So they're very independent, they're very strong, and they don't basically don't meekly go away like with normal refugees. I wanted to do this because basically, she's a very strong female character and would give quite a lot of flair to our game. The next character is Tsukumo Isoroku. He's the samurai shogun from Japan, and you'll be able to play as him during the campaign as well. And the next person is Ragnar, whom the whole storyline revolves around, because Wolfram is trying to find her lost brother, who she thought was dead, but wasn't dead. If you played the first game, sorry, I just spoiled the game for you. But it's printed all over our booth, so you could have guessed. We have a very mysterious character called Victoria Krakenfang. As you can see, she is part of the White Fangs. So you can imagine that she's one of the mercenaries, but I will not spoil the game for you. We also have Nora Godwin. She's as you can see, the Mega pilot. And as you play the game, you'll find out what she's really good at. The last character is Kohaku, which I will totally not talk about, but obviously she's from Japan, judging from her ninja outfit. So we put a lot of effort into the story. Again, we've made a difference between the first game and the second game for the story. This game coming up is the storyline is created brand new by the guy who did I Am Setsuna from Square Enix. I worked with him. I was actually the audio director during I Am Setsuna. His name is Inaba-san. And we wanted a much more moving story than the first because it's very personal. It's about Wolfram finding her brother and all the drama that goes on with it. So, the first game, for those of you who played the first game, it was more like a political movement and selling weapons of war, etc. But this game is very personal for Wolfram, so we try to make a difference there. As you can see on the drawings as well, we put in we're an indie game studio, so we don't have a lot of funds. We put in a lot of effort into each picture that we make. So this is one of the examples of a picture by Koya Takahashi. And as you can see, it shows a lot of mood and portrayal of people's emotions. So, Tiny Metal Full Metal Rumble, it will be out on the Switch and Steam. We may add more platform as we go on. It is almost $15. I hope this is the right price, and it's going to be coming very, very soon. You can check it out on tinymetal.com at tinymetalgame, or you can go to booth 10 downstairs and check it out. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. Xbox release on the first game. So as with most indie games, we have a publisher, and it's under Untied, which is Sony Music Entertainment. If they say yes to that, we'll be able to do that. For us to port to Xbox One or any kind of Xbox, it's not too hard because we've already made the PC versions of it. But we do have to put in some time into making sure the multiplayer works, etc. So I could ask for you. I do hope that our new publisher, the Lightworks or Area 34 outside of Japan, would allow us to make an Xbox version for the upcoming title as well. Yep.
How long is the
The
campaign?
campaign, if you do once through, there's 39 missions for the campaign, and some of the campaign could easily take you over an hour. So we're guessing somewhere around minimum 40 hours. And if you do master mission difficulty, it's going to take you way longer. I have difficulty playing master difficulties as well. So I don't know, maybe 80 hours, 100 hours, yeah, around along those lines. Yep.
I have a microphone if you wish.
Thank you. Two, if you don't mind. One, will the expansion be bundled with the original game when it comes out for Switch, or will they be individual?
This is a standalone expansion, so it will be individual.
Okay. Are there any plans for an art book? Because I really like that art.
Oh, thank you very much. There may be, fingers crossed, and also no promises, but we do really, really want a physical version of the game, and some people really, really want to produce our physical copies of the game, so fingers crossed there may be an art book in the future.
One more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Have you ever considered the concept of sea warfare as well?
What's that?
Sea warfare, like
Oh, sea.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Including like boats or stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, we do. We have thought about it, and because we are a indie game studio, we have to think about exactly how much units we can make, because each unit does cost thousands of dollars to actually make, and so. We came across a lot of problems that we had. We wanted to make unique units for each faction, etc. But we decided to forgo that so that we can have more variety of units. And also, we decided to forgo C units because we still haven't got around the mechanic of how to make C units really fun. In Advanced Wars, we felt the C units were fun, but were limited to places around the sea. And we can't make all C units indirect units, otherwise it's just going to be way too strong. So these are the type of things that I'd like to think about. And also, despite the game being very deformed and cute and everything, and not really true to the realities of war that we see this day, we do want to put in as much reality as we can. And usually C units are, you guys have the best Navy in the world, right? The US Navy, almost all indirect units. But when they get hit, they're weak as hell. They don't have armor because anything that they get hit by will probably destroy anything. So how do we reflect this into the game design? We haven't quite figured it out, so we've left it for the next game.
Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman in the back again? Yep.
Have you played the game Wargroove yet?
Yes, I have. I love the game.
So have you thought about implementing like a puzzle mode similar to Wargroove?
You know what? The puzzle mode is so cool. I really wanted to do this, but the problem again, it comes down to budget. Wargroove had a lot of money from all the other games that they've published so far, and this is basically our first game, and we did it on a really skeleton budget. Basically, we have in Japan, we don't have a thing called game designer. We have a guy called the planner, which does everything, implements everything. Does everything, basically, even brings you out tea. And we only have one guy who does that. We have Daniel Dressler as a programmer and me working on the game design. And it's just not enough people to actually do the puzzle mode. We actually have, just as a side note, we actually have the ability to put out a campaign mode as well and a map editor as well. But because we don't have the resources, we don't have the resources to make little UIs for people to easily make the game. I mean, the game is, we can make the maps ourselves because we're developers, and we can get around not having pretty UI, etc. But we just don't have the resources to actually make little buttons and everything to make it easier for you guys. And the biggest issue we have is we don't have the infrastructure to have an external server like Wargroove does to exchange maps and stuff. So that kind of makes us a little sad. But maybe when this game sells quite a lot, then we can actually, for the next expansion, we can easily put a map editor, a campaign editor, whatever you guys want.
So two quick questions. One
Sure.
is there fog of war? Are there fog of war stages?
Yes. So every difficulty except normal has fog of war, and a lot of people. I've received a lot of criticism about fog of war, and how a lot of people don't like not being able to see everything. Now in Tiny Meadow we have several kinds of fog of war. Actually, we have two specific. We call it, internally, we call it the hard fog, where there's little cubes on top where you can't even see the terrain. And then we have a soft fog, where you can see the terrain, but you don't know what units they are. And one of the game design mechanic that we're very proud of in terms of fog of war is we allowed the radar units. So the radar units are able to see through the fog of war. They can't tell you which unit are in the fog of war, but you can attack them because you can see them as a blip. So yes, there will be fog of war.
The other question in the screenshot with the victory conditions, it said, eliminate all units. How many types of victory conditions roughly are there, and how varied are they?
Off the top of my head, I think there was half a dozen for the main victory conditions, and there are tons in terms of the challenges. Yeah. Cool.
So would this be a game that would feature DLC if it does well enough?
I cannot confirm nor deny DLCs. I mean, we've had DLCs, free DLCs in the first game. We've had, if you buy, when the game came out initially in 2017 December, you had 20 missions and no multiplayer. It wasn't ready yet. And throughout the year, we've had several patches, or you could call it DLCs, where we added skirmish maps, and also we added, I think, a whole act, which is basically 6 new missions. And I hope by that statement you understand what we prepared. We prepared quite extensively, but I'm not at liberty. I mean, I'll tell you if we were self-publishing, but because we're not, we can't tell you exactly what we prepared, but we have prepared quite a chunky content. Anybody else? Well, maybe I always have question and answer all the time, and maybe how about I throw you guys a question? Do you guys play any other tactical strategy game besides this kind of like modern game, like Modern Warfare game type of game? Something like, you know, Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics, or things like Fire Emblem, yes? Do you guys play those kind of games? Yeah? Most of you guys? Yeah, yeah. It's one of, you know, it's one of those problems as a game dev. We buy so many games, but we never get to play it. And that's one of the games that I bought that I haven't played it yet. Yeah, okay, cool. The question, I asked this question because we do have a fantastic, robust system to make these new kind of games besides Cynometal. And you know, we can make a fantasy RPG, or you know, something like XCOM using the same engine. And I think these days we're having a lot of tactics type of game, but we don't have a lot of tactics game coming out of Japan from the indie scene. So we wanted to, I wanted to see how much interest there are in these kind of games. So yeah. All right. Thank you very much. This is the end of the panel. I'm very happy to see so many enthusiastic questions. You can meet me downstairs at the booth, or you know, feel free to chat me up on Skype. Or we do have a Discord channel. You can go to you can find out the Discord link on our website or elsewhere. If you guys are on Steam or stuff, we'll be very happy to chat to you. Thank you very much, and see you next time.